Hi, peeps. You're listening to She's My Cherry Pie, the baking podcast from the Cherry Bomb Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jessie Sheehan. I'm a baker, recipe developer, and the author of 4 baking books. Each Saturday, I'm hanging out with the sweetest bakers around and taking a deep dive into their signature bakes. My guest today is Lara Adekoya, the founder and baker behind Fleurs Bakery in Los Angeles. I met Lara last year when we had a baker's event for She's My Cherry Pie in LA. She was such a delight to talk to, and I knew I had to have her on the show. Lara started her cookie business as a pop-up during the pandemic, and she opened her first brick and mortar earlier this year. The name of her company is inspired by her time living in France and her 2 favorite things, flowers and salt. And she's become quite known in LA for her cookies. She joins me today to talk about her transition from working in sales to making cookies, her love for France, and we discuss her early dream to be a dentist and go to dental school. Who knew? Plus, she walks me through the recipe for her Ginger Molasses Cookies. Chatting with Lara was such a treat, and I know you'll enjoy learning more about her. Stay tuned for our chat. Today's episode is presented by King Arthur Baking Company. Whether you're a serious baker or just a newbie, King Arthur is here to help you be the best baker you can be. Their flours are some of the most coveted in the industry, as you've heard from many of my guests. With the holiday season fast approaching, might I suggest tapping into King Arthur's host of resources to help you level up your baking game. With ingredients and tools for every baking occasion, over 2,000 recipes, and virtual and on-demand classes, King Arthur will guide you every step of the way. Did you know they also have a baker's hotline where you can speak to a professional baker 7 days a week? I mean, peeps, how cool is that? No matter your question or concern, King Arthur is here to help this holiday season and beyond. Head to kingarthurbaking.com to learn more and call 1-855-371-BAKE. That's 1-855-371-BAKE to try the hotline for yourself. This episode is presented by Kerrygold. Let's talk for a minute about butter, which is truly one of life's simple pleasures. Beautiful butters, like those from Kerrygold, are as good as gold to me and all the butter lovers in my life. Kerrygold butter is the most special of them all. It's made with milk from Irish grass-fed cows and has a rich flavor and creamy texture, thanks to its naturally higher butterfat percentage. This also gives Kerrygold butter that beautiful, natural golden yellow color we all know and love. Think about how many simple, delicious moments involve butter. Making grilled cheese for a loved one. I mean, I can hear the butter sizzling in the pan right now. Can't you? Slathering butter on an amazing scone or banana bread that you spent your Saturday morning baking? Even just passing butter around a lively table when you get together with friends and family for a meal. There's a whole world of Kerrygold butters for you to discover and enjoy. Learn more at KerrygoldUSA.com. Are you looking for that perfect gift for a foodie friend? Check out Cherry Bomb's holiday gift guides, which are filled with delicious ideas and suggestions for your nearest and dearest. There's something for everyone, from the pastry pros and beginner bakers to the mix masters and sporty spice lovers in your life. Or, if you have a loved one who wants to build their community and network within the world of food, beverage, and hospitality, consider gifting a Cherry Bomb membership. Members get special perks like access to our virtual monthly meetings. Plus, they get specially priced tickets to our annual Jubilee Conference that's happening Saturday, April 12th in New York City. To learn more about the membership program and to browse the gift guides, head to cherrybomb.com. Let's chat with today's guest. Lara, so excited to have you on She's My Cherry Pie and to talk Ginger Molasses Cookies with you and so much more.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. This is such a dream come true.
I love finding out from guests about early baking or sweets eating moments and wondered if you could share your earliest memory or an early memory of something you baked or something you ate that was impactful.
Sure. So growing up, I feel like I always had a sweet tooth. I also had a lot of cavities, but I think that speaks to my love of sweets. One of the earliest memories I have is my mom making oatmeal chocolate chip walnut cookies. So we would spend some of our summers in Hawaii, and she always would make them, and she would always add coconut because she loves coconut. And I just remember her making them for us, and just the taste of like the butter and the sugar and the cream and the oatmeal. It just hit a certain note, and I was like, wow, I love sweets and I love cookies.
So your mom is Japanese and your dad is Nigerian, and you learned baking from your mom. So
Yes.
besides these incredible sounding oatmeal cookies with coconut in them, which I love, can you tell us about some of the things you baked with her or some of her specialties that kind of inspired you?
I come from a large family. I'm one of 4 kids, and my mom provided for us in the way that a mother does through food. So she nurtured us through her recipes, not only baking, actually more cooking than baking. Baking was something she kind of just did on the side. She's not a baker, but my mom is an amazing cook. So from her, I feel like I really learned the beauty and the value of nurturing others through food because that's how she shows us she loves us. She always had something in the fridge, always had something on the table. She loves to entertain, like restaurant grade culinary experience.
Tell me about some of the things that she was cooking for you guys that
Oh,
like you
yeah.
remember.
So my mom was born and raised in Japan, so we grew up eating a lot of Japanese food, chicken katsu curry, a lot of udon, yakisoba, onigiri, lots of flavor, lots of fresh ingredients. And I guess another thing that's interesting about my mom is that she's the type of cook that's not following a recipe book. She doesn't have a recipe. She's just kind of freestyling and she has an amazing palate. Like if we go to a restaurant and she tries something, she'll be like, I think it has this, and then she'll go home and recreate it. And from her, I really learned this creativity of blending flavors or trying things or experimenting with maybe miso with this or, coconut in that and just kind of being playful in the kitchen. She's definitely not like a precise measure by measure cook. So even when I called her early pandemic days asking for her oatmeal chocolate chip recipe, it was very much so add this and then I put cinnamon and I throw coconuts versus like a 2 teaspoons of this and 4 teaspoons of that.
It sounds like you were very much like a foodie family. Were
Totally.
your siblings as into it as you were?
That's really interesting you ask. I mean, we definitely all have an appetite for sure. And earlier today, I was thinking about this. Some of my earliest memories, my grandpa would pick us up from school. So this is like middle school, elementary school. We'd go to his house.
Was it your
My
mom's
mom's
dad?
dad,
Okay.
uh-huh. And I remember, my sister would be watching TV, my brothers would be playing video games, and I was never into video games or TV. I was in the kitchen. I remember opening up grandpa's pantry and fridge and freezer, and there wasn't much. There was like Wonder Bread, pork rinds, Neapolitan ice cream, orange juice. And so I got creative. My earliest memories of like really fussing around with no one around, no supervision, is like taking ice cream, mixing it with orange juice, and then there's ice cubes, and then there's some bread. And just those are my earliest memories of like being in the kitchen and just experimenting.
I love that
Yeah,
so much.
crazy.
I love that
Crazy.
so much. But I also actually do love Neapolitan ice
Oh, me
cream.
too. It
Like,
inspired one of my
oh my
cookies.
gosh,
Oh, same.
exactly, which we will talk about. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, I love that. So you famously lived in Paris when you were a teenager and you went to high school there. And I know that it was Paris or the French language that inspired the name of your bakery. Why did your family move there? And also, were you kind of baking and cooking when you were in France and sort of taking advantage of ingredients or styles or being inspired by what was around you? Or was it more a time to go to school and not a baking and cooking time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was born and raised in Seattle. The school I attended, they had like a year exchange program. So I convinced my parents to let me go live in France. I actually made a whole PowerPoint and convinced them that you should let me go study abroad in France. So they did. They let me. So I went abroad for the year. It was a program called School Year Abroad. We lived in Rennes, but also visited Paris and Lyon in the south and kind of went all over. I didn't do anything culinary baking while I was in France. It was totally just like high school. However, when I was in France, I developed this huge appreciation for the specialty boulangeries and patisseries that I would see all over. On my walk back from school every day, I would infamously stop at a bakery and get a tarte aux framboises or get a millefeuille or get a éclair au café. There was just this little pleasure of this beautifully made pastry that was just sitting in the window or sitting in the bakery case, and there was just this magic around it. So those are the memories that I have of when I lived in France. It was always going to the bakery on the way home, getting a fresh baguette, on the way in, getting a warm pain au chocolat. And I just loved the beauty and the magic of a bakery, any of the bakeries in France, especially like the small mom and pop ones.
I love your French accent. And I
Thank
have
you.
to ask, do you speak French and Japanese and English?
So I speak French, English, and a little Japanese. My mom is fluent, of course, but I know a couple words, a couple of phrases here and there.
If she speaks to you in Japanese, can you understand her?
For the most part.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But she didn't speak Japanese to you guys exclusively when you were...
No, it was more like if we were in the supermarket and did something bad, she would say it in Japanese to be polite, or on the airplane, or, but yeah.
Oh, I love that. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. Today's episode is presented by California Prunes, the best kind of prunes out there. I am a big fan of California prunes for 2 reasons. They're a great addition to your pantry when it comes to smart snacking and baking. You probably already know that prunes are good for your gut. You might even know that prunes are also good for your bone health. But what you really need to know is that prunes are absolutely delicious in both sweet and savory dishes. But don't just take it from me. Here's what some of the country's top culinary experts have to say. Chef Bronwyn Wyatt of Bayou St. Cake says, prunes have an earthy, winey richness that pairs beautifully with the tart, fresh flavor of berries. Chef Kat Turner from Highly Likely in LA says, they are an incredibly versatile ingredient that strike a great balance between sweet and savory. They are incredibly sensual. Ana Castro from Akamaya in New Orleans says, prunes have a sultriness to them. They are very rich and like velvet. I like to use prune puree in my baked goods to give them great flavor and also to replace some of the sugar, eggs, or fat in the recipe. It's super easy to whip up. Just blend prunes and water together and voila. For recipe ideas and more, be sure to check out the California Prunes website at californiaprunes.org. Happy baking and happy snacking. This episode is presented by Ghirardelli, making life a bite better. We're in the heart of the holiday season right now, my favorite time of year. How happy are you? I know so many of you talented professional bakers out there are whipping up delicious cookies, cakes, brownies, bars, and other holiday confections. The only thing better than something baked during the holidays is something baked with chocolate. That's why I'm excited to tell you all about Ghirardelli's convenient 5-pound bags of chocolate, which come in 8 different varieties and are available at restaurant supply stores and online. I know we all go through a lot of chocolate this time of year, so these are perfect. Ghirardelli has milk and semi-sweet chocolate chips for adding into classic bakes, milk and dark wafers for coating and drizzling, even dark chocolate barista chips you can sprinkle on desserts and drinks. All you professional bakers listening out there know that the best baked goodies are made from the highest quality ingredients. Did you know that Ghirardelli chocolate only uses top quality beans that are traceable right back to the farmers who grew them all around the world? They also only roast the heart of the cacao bean, called the nib, instead of the whole bean, to make sure their products have the most consistent, intense, chocolatey flavor possible. And they refine their chocolate to teeny tiny particles, 19 microns to be exact, which is what gives Ghirardelli chocolate its creamy, velvety texture. To learn more about Ghirardelli professional products and request samples, visit ghirardelli.com/professional. Or you can find their products at kitchen supply stores like Chef's Store, Webstaurant, and Amazon. Peeps, have you heard about Cherry Bomb Jubilee? It's our annual conference for women in food, drink, and hospitality, and it's happening Saturday, April 12th in New York City. I always love being at Jubilee and connecting with other bakers, pastry chefs, and cookbook authors. If you'd like to join us, you can snag early bird tickets at cherrybomb.com. They're on sale now until December 31st, so don't delay. And if you're an official Bomb Squad member, check your inbox for special member pricing. I hope to see you there. Now back to our guest. You ended up going to college in the United States, and you worked at Nordstrom's when you graduated. That job turned out to be crazy instrumental in building your cookie business. But I also learned that around that time, you were also interested in going to dental school?
Yes.
Okay, honey. I love this idea of a cookie baker pursuing dentistry. So please, before we talk about Nordstrom's, tell me about dental school.
Yes, I know. I have a crazy story. I'm glad we get to break it down for everyone.
Me too.
So when I went to USC, I studied global health and French. Of course, I had to keep the French thing going, but I was really interested in healthcare and helping people and working around the world. So I actually thought I was going to go work for like the World Health Organization or the UN, doing something in healthcare, but also French-speaking countries, since the French language was such a huge part of my life. After I graduated from USC, I applied to like a master's in public health program at USC, got admitted, but the summer in between going from graduating USC to grad school, I went home and I saw my dentist, Dr. Robinson, and he was in my mouth and fussing around, and I always ask to hold the mirror up because I love to know what's going on. But I told you when I was growing up, I had a lot of cavities, so I spent a lot of time at the dentist. I remember talking to him about my plans, and he was like, why don't you consider dentistry? You're interested in healthcare. You're always curious about what's going on, in the dental chair. Like, why don't you pursue dentistry?
I love that your dentist was like a mentor.
Oh, total mentor.
my
He's the
gosh.
bomb. Total mentor. And like such a great mentor and great guy. So Dr. Robinson was like, you should consider dental school. You should shadow me and maybe see where it goes. So I spent most of the summer shadowing him. And then I decided to defer my USC MPH admission and pursue classes at UCLA towards dental school. So 2 years go by. I'm taking biochem and physics and OChem and all of the science classes, thinking I want to be a dentist. And beyond the practice itself, Dr. Robinson, my dentist at home, he has a family practice where he sees my mom, then he sees my little brother, then he sees my niece. And he has built his own community through this service that he's providing us for just like dental care and all of that. And so beyond just being a dentist, I was really excited about building a community and building a business around, a skill set and a service that I could provide other people, which interestingly is now what I do as a baker with my own bake shop. Now I'm serving cookies and building community that way versus being a dentist.
And causing cavities.
And causing lots of cavities.
Only kidding. When you were at Nordstrom, is that when you applied to dental school?
Exactly. So after college, I had shadowed him, and then I came back to LA, and I was like, well, I need a 9 to 5 while I'm taking classes at night. So I started working at Nordstrom at the Grove in designer shoes. I knew nothing about designer shoes. I love Nordstrom. I knew that, but I was never the type to work like a desk job. I tried that. It wasn't really for me. So working at Nordstrom worked out really well because I got to be like an entrepreneur in my own right. So we worked in a 100% commission-driven environment. I had to hustle. I had to build relationships. I had to make customers. And I was selling them shoes with a price point of $595 to $2,000. So Gucci and Dior and Fendi. I excelled in that environment because I was able to build relationships. And the women that I was serving, many of them were entrepreneurs in their own right. Some were wives, some had their own businesses. But it was through those relationships that I built that I was able to be, basically $1 million seller at Nordstrom, working part-time while taking classes at UCLA towards dental school.
Honey, you are amazing.
They're so
and
sweet.
All of those women had a huge impact on your future. The pandemic happens and you're let go by Nordstrom, as is everyone. And it was then that you first kind of created the Fleurs baking concept, kind of pop-up company just directly out of your house.
Totally.
So the first cookie that you were making was a sea salt chocolate chip cookie. Had you been perfecting that recipe for like many years, or were you just like, oh, I'm doing this thing, I need a chocolate chip cookie, I think I'll make one?
100%. So I distinctly remember it was obviously COVID shut down. It was like very early, so things were kind of shutting down. Some things were still open. And funny enough, I remember I was at home with my fiance, well, then boyfriend, and my sister, and I was craving a cookie. And I was like, I just need to go get one. So I actually I was living in West Hollywood, and I mapped like cookies in LA. And this bakery called Milk Jar Cookies popped up. I was like, great, let's go. Let's try it. Never been. Let's go get a cookie. So I remember driving there, and they were closed. And I was like, what? They're closed? Not that they shouldn't have been, but I was just craving a cookie. So I was like, I'm just going to make one. So I ended up going to the store, getting brown sugar, white sugar, all of the things. And I just made a batch, and they were delicious. My sister kept eating the dough. My fiance or boyfriend at the time kept eating the cookies. And I was like, oh, dang, you guys like these? They were like, you should make more. So then I made another batch and another batch. I called my mom for the oatmeal recipe, made those. And then, when you make cookies, you're not just making 2, 3, or 4, you're making a dozen or 18. I ended up initially just giving them to my friends that lived in the neighborhood, rode our bikes, dropped them off. And then with the pandemic hitting and I had lost my job at Nordstrom, a lot of my Nordstrom customers were still kind of texting me, some for shoes because they still wanted their shoes. And others were like, hey, I heard Nordstrom let everyone go. Are you okay? Because we had that relationship that went beyond the transaction, beyond the store. It was more of like, how are you? It was more about that relationship that we had built, which in turn made those transactions not feel like transactions, right? So some of them had texted me just trying to connect. And I was like, no, I got let go from Nordstrom, but I am making cookies. If you want to buy some, I kind of started a little business. And all of them were like, sure, can you drop them off? And I was like, sure. How many do you want? And they were like a dozen. And I was like, great. Send me an invoice. I was like, I don't have that, but here's my Venmo. And that's how it started.
When it was still just a pop-up, now it's a brick and mortar, but when Fleurs was still a pop-up, you've described your approach as digital first, which I wanted you to unpack a little bit for us. And you also mentioned sort of a lot of exciting brand partnerships came about that I was hoping you could name some names. And then you also had something called the weekly cookie drop.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about being digital first, about the brand partnerships, and about cookie drops?
Yeah, those are great questions. So digital first. So that's kind of something that I took from Nordstrom. As a salesperson, you're kind of standing around on the floor hoping for that customer to walk in the door and spend $1,000, right? But one thing that they encouraged us to do is to be digitally enabled. I was, without even having to call it that. I was on my cell phone. I had my customers' information with their, approval, of course. And I was able to create an iPhone photo stream. I was able to text them photos. I was able to send them a link to check out and buy these Gucci shoes. So instead of waiting for that customer to walk in the door, find ways to meet the customer where they are, meaning be digitally enabled. So when I started my business, we were all at home. It was COVID. We had the masks on, stay-at-home orders, but I still found a way to be digitally enabled and thus connect with my customers, even if they were in Brentwood at their apartment or in Inglewood at their parents' house. It didn't matter because we had social media and Instagram and text and all of these ways to just, connect through photography or videos and still find a way to, intimately connect the customer to my products. So there's that. The weekly cookie drops I started in 2020. It was very DIY in the beginning, meaning I didn't have a website when I first started, and I just did these cookie drops. I named them cookie drops, where I would essentially drop or say I'm baking these 4 flavors this week. I'm making so many. I'm going to post the inventory online. At first, it was send me a DM to order, which was crazy because my DMs were flooded and that was very unorganized and I was disappointing people left and right. Anyways, I ended up getting a website, much easier, more streamlined. But these drops is literally just how I started creating a little bit of buzz about the product, letting customers know that it was just me baking. So there was a limited amount available per week, limited flavors due to ingredients. I was only able to budget for so many ingredients at once. I was very much paycheck to paycheck, right? I had no income because I had been furloughed. So just kind of using the money I had saved up, which wasn't much, to pour into ingredients, to make some cookies, to make some money, to go back to Smart and Final to buy more ingredients in Trader Joe's. And that's how the cycle started. And you mentioned brand partnerships. So I started the business in April 2020. I was hustling all summer, May, June, July. There was George Floyd and all of these like social movements happening. And I just was trying to stay afloat despite all of the negative things going on in the world. And Interscope Records was my first brand partnership, if you will, my first corporate order. They reached out in August of 2020. While they were in office, they did something called Monday Munchies, where I guess they would order bagels or cookies or anything for the office on Mondays. They reached out and they said, well, we're not in office, but we were hoping you could help us with Monday Munchies and send cookies all over the U.S. to our staff and our team and our colleagues, etc. At the time, I had only been making max like maybe 100 or 200, maybe 300 cookies a week, maybe. I had like a small 6-quart mixer and that baby was working overtime. And when they reached out about this order, I think it was for maybe like 800 to 1,000 cookies. And I remember calling my dad and my mom. I was like, what do I do? What do I do? But I was like, I can't say no. So I just took it as an opportunity to rise to the occasion. I was transparent, communicative, again, all things I learned at Nordstrom. And I just said, hey, I would love to fill the order. I cannot produce 1,000 cookies in a day. Are we able to break it up over the course of a week? And they were like, sure, that's even better. So I was like, great. So we broke it down to like maybe 200 a day, which I was able to do while keeping the quality up, while running back to the store. shuffling 12 cookies at a time in and out of the oven. But that one partnership led to Oprah's network, led to Disney, led to HBO, led to Delta Airlines, led to Comcast and Netflix and Hulu. And I'm just so grateful because had I not, risen to that occasion and put my best foot forward and my best efforts, then I don't think any of these other partnerships would have
Well,
come.
that's amazing.
Thank you.
So the bakery, you now have a brick and mortar. You opened it in March of 2024.
Yes. So Fleurs is the name of my bakery. Fleur in French means flower and sel means salt. It's named after my two favorite things, which are flowers and salt. But as you all know, fleur de sel is sea salt. So it's like a play on words of sea salt, which I put on most of my cookies. And then my favorite things, which are flowers and salt.
So you still are doing cookie drops and still having online ordering. Tell us why that's still happening with a brick and mortar.
Yes. So the challenge that I feel like many businesses faced during the pandemic was going from brick and mortar to online. How can we get people to order our stuff online when they're used to coming in person, right? I did the total opposite, where I went from this crazy digital booming online business to now having a physical space. And I think a lot of the integrity of my brand is still in the cookie drop, still in the, not even scarcity, but just in that, it was a movement I feel like I created. It's like in our brand DNA. Yes, it's great to sell out. But at the same time, at this point in my life, I want to be able to feed and nourish and nurture as many people as I can. I don't like selling out. That means I didn't make enough product. So yes, the cookie drops are still very much a thing. It's now kind of transitioned into more of like a pre-order, which is great because it encourages people who have a busier schedule. They can still pre-order their favorite flavors and know that it's at the bakery waiting for them before 5 o'clock when I close. But it's worked really well because it's allowed me to have not only different streams of income, but different ways to meet people where they want to be met, right? So if you prefer to order online, this is how you can do it. If you want to walk in the bakery, I'm here smiling with 1,000 cookies in front of me. If you want to pre-order for your office or, your corporate event or your wedding, let's handle it through our partnerships portal and meet your requests and meet your needs. I'm just trying to be flexible and, know what I can handle, but also meet the customers where they want to be met also.
I assume you have employees now.
I have a couple.
Okay,
I have a few.
I was just, when you said I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that
Okay,
part.
All right, so the recipe. I saw online you called them the crystallized Ginger Molasses Cookies,
Yes.
which I love. They're soft, they're full of warm spices, balanced with ginger, perfect for the holidays. Are they on the menu all the time?
You know what? It started as a seasonal offering, but they're so good that I've had them in February. They're such almost a staple now that it's too good of a cookie to limit it to only October through December.
I love you. And is the recipe from like the pop-up days or is it new to the store?
Same from the pop-up days.
Love. Are all of the cookies based on a formula? Like this cookie calls for melted butter. Do they all call for melted butter?
Totally different. I mean, there's like a genre of them that are similar. So like chocolate chip is similar to vanilla bean, right? No chocolate, which is similar to snickerdoodle. Add a few more things. But then some of them like the ginger, the oatmeal, the funfetti, some of them are different. So some use cream, some melted, some room temp. Yeah.
Love it. Okay, so first things first, we're going to preheat our oven to 375 degrees. And I wondered, is that convection or conventional?
That's a good question. So when I first started, I was using my at-home oven, and I was actually baking the cookies at like 400 degrees. It wasn't the best oven, but she worked hard for me.
Yeah.
So I would say with like an at-home oven, like a 375 to 400 works and has worked because I've done it both.
Yep.
I think my original oven was just tired.
Yep. But now if you're doing convection,
now
it's
at my
350.
bakery, it's 350.
I love the idea of baking cookies at this higher heat.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it does some magical things with crisping it on the outside, but keeping the inside soft.
Soft and doughy.
Yeah. So we're going to combine brown sugar. Is that light or dark brown?
I like light brown.
Light brown. We're going to combine light brown sugar and 1 cup of melted butter. Is it unsalted butter?
I use unsalted butter.
Okay. So we have our light brown sugar, we have our unsalted butter, and on slow speed, we're going to mix in a stand mixer until it looks kind of like wet sand.
Yep.
Then we're going to add some eggs. Are our eggs room temperature?
I like room temperature. I feel like they mix better.
Mhm.
I've, in a pinch, if I have to take an egg out of the fridge, I will, but I totally prefer room temp eggs,
Yep.
large room temp eggs.
So we're going to add some large room temp eggs. We're going to add a scraped vanilla bean. Is there a brand of vanilla bean that you like?
No rhyme or reason. I just get like Madagascar. I take the pod, slice it with a knife, and then scrape the bean pods. or the vanilla beans right out and pour it right into the mixture.
So you add the eggs, the scraped vanilla bean, plus a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Is there a brand for the extract?
I like Nielsen Massey.
I wondered why both. Why do we want a vanilla bean plus the extract?
Yeah, I feel like they both bring a different dimension. I mean, the vanilla extract obviously has like a little alcohol in it, so you get that. But I just like one, the look of the vanilla bean. And then two, I think it just brings a different dimension than just straight up vanilla extract.
Mm-hmm.
Nielsen Massey also has a vanilla bean paste, which I've used in a pinch, but it is a little syrupy. There's already going to be molasses, so then it becomes a little too syrupy, but you could use that in a pinch, but I just like to scrape the vanilla bean pod.
Love.
Yeah.
So this is the moment where the eggs, the vanilla are going to be mixed on their own in like a small cup with
like
a whisk or a fork.
Yep.
Whisk that until you've kind of broken down the eggs, and then you add that mixture into the stand mixer on low speed.
Yep.
Tell us why you like to do it that way.
You know, it's just what works for me. I mean, I think it's partly one, I don't have like a scientific super culinary background where someone might say never do that or that's the thing to do. Out of convenience and ease, especially when I was just kind of starting out, I would have one thing going and then it's like, oh, I need the egg. So then it just naturally would be in a side bowl. And so that's kind of what I did, and that's the rhythm I created when I bake. So I do that with all my recipes. I do like the eggs and the vanilla or vanilla beans in one little bowl on the side. Whisk it or use a fork, either way, and then I just verse it into like the wet sand mixture.
For eggs that are completely blended?
Just enough to get like the vanilla bean and like the vanilla pretty.
But like breaking the yolk.
Just breaking the
like
yolk.
Combining the yolk and the white,
Yeah,
so
not
it's
quite
pretty fluid.
whipping it, but
okay.
Mixing it so it's fluid.
Okay,
I wouldn't
great.
whip it, but mixing it till it's just well mixed, and then I verse it into the wet sand looking.
Yeah. I love your honesty about how the choices you made were sort of based on what you needed to do in the moment. But that's so great.
Yeah.
That's so great. I love that. We add the eggs and the vanilla. Once that's combined, we're going to add the molasses. Is there a brand of molasses?
Yes. I'm kind of picky about my molasses. I like the Blackstrap Organic. I get it from Whole Foods, but that's the one that I like. It's really dark, not too sweet, actually.
So we add the molasses. Then we are going to add the all-purpose flour, some sea salt. Do you ever use kosher or it's always sea salt?
Usually just sea salt, like Malden sea salt.
Yep. Oh, so it's flaky sea salt,
yes.
like Malden? Ooh, so we're going to add all-purpose flour, Malden sea salt, baking powder, and baking soda. Can you tell us why both?
I found that, well, not in every recipe, but this recipe, I think both work, and I add equal parts of both. I can't really tell you what it does, but some of my other recipes I'll use cornstarch, I'll use, I don't know, like a different leavening ingredient, but this one, maybe it's because of the molasses and the liquid. I don't know, it just binds the cookie to be. I also add a little bit more flour sometimes because I find the molasses makes the dough super sticky, and just so I can get the shape and shape the cookies how I want them without them being too flat, I'll add like a little bit more flour at the end if I find the dough mixture to be a little bit runny.
And then we also are going to add some spices at this point, like ginger and allspice and cloves, nutmeg and cinnamon. Is there a brand of spices that you're fond of?
No, not particularly. I mean, again, this was like COVID when I was developing these recipes, so it's really what I had. At the time, I was getting my spices from like Ralph's or Gelson's or Whole Foods.
Now we're going to chill the dough for like 30 minutes to an hour. Do you ever rest the dough overnight?
I have. I don't find that it makes a huge difference, to be honest. If I'm making like big batches and I'm baking in volume, then of course sometimes I'll have to like rest it overnight, or I'll make a bigger batch and then chill half and bake half. But with this, I find flavor-wise, I don't see, a huge difference if it's chilled for 30 minutes to an hour versus overnight.
Do you do this with all the cookies, just 30 minutes to an hour, or do some of them get overnight rest?
Some of them get overnight rest, and some of them I just make and bake. Like the peanut butter, you just make it and bake it. The lemon, make and bake it. But this one, just because the dough is so sticky, 30 minutes to an hour just kind of helps chill the dough so it kind of solidifies a bit, so then it's easier to shape, and then it keeps the shape while it bakes.
Right. So now we're going to roll by hand into like 2 tablespoon balls, but maybe at the bakery you're making larger than that.
Yeah.
So you can do like a quarter cup if you want like a really massive cookie.
Nice.
And do you use like a portion scoop? Do you use cookie scoop?
I have used cookie scoops, but I usually just weigh them using a scale. That helps keep them relatively in the same family because I have a heavy hand and sometimes the cookies come out very large. I think I'm just generous. I'm like, I could use a little bit more dough.
Right.
But yeah, I try to use a scale so I can measure out the cookies in grams, and that way they're consistent.
I love that. We now are going to like smooth the balls in our hand. Like, do you want the dough on the outside to be smooth?
Yeah, I want it to be totally smooth. And then I take like a bowl of just cane sugar and I just like roll it. Not too, well, pretty generous. So I do a nice dip and a twist and a roll.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fully covered. And then I'll place them on the baking sheet.
Yes. And should we picture a baking sheet with like, you can't put 12 cookies on a baking sheet?
No.
Because they would spread too much, right?
I usually do 8.
Okay.
3, 2, and 3. If I'm not in a rush, I like to do 6. So the cookies can really just kind of do their thing.
Yep. And you don't have to be nervous.
Yeah. But my nightmare is 12 cookies on a tray.
Yeah. Of course. Like unless you have like a massive baking sheet.
It's my nightmare.
Yeah. I feel you. So we have the cookies on our baking sheet. We're going to bake them for like 13 to 14 minutes until our edges are crispy and the cookies have spread. Mm-hmm. Do you rotate the pans halfway through?
I do.
Yeah.
When I can. I think it's the best practice.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if I'm baking in volume and I'm in a pinch and I have 3 ovens going, no. But when I'm at home and we're just focusing on this perfect batch, totally rotate halfway. I like to bake on the middle rack, not the top, not the bottom.
Yeah.
Right in the middle.
Totally. I know we'll give the pan a gentle bang on the counter to deflate the cookies just a bit. And you know what I do? I press them very lightly with like a spatula you would flip an egg with. Not like a fish spatula that has spaces. But I'll just very gently press with a spatula. Kind of the same idea.
Totally. Just to kind of let them just settle and relax.
Yeah. And then you say that we need to serve these at room temp. But can I please have one warm?
This is the biggest back and forth I get. I think I am the exception to the rule because I like a room temp cookie.
Yeah.
When the cookies come out of the oven, I mean, first off, these smell amazing. It smells like Christmas, holiday. You're getting ginger, you're getting spice, you smell the cloves. Like you get all of the senses are stimulated. However, I need that cookie to just rest and just chill for a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't like maybe like a chocolate chip, but this one I feel like the integrity of the cookie when it's crispy on the outside and then the inside is moist, you really get that contrast in texture. And I think that's the beauty of the paired with the spices. Sometimes I think when a cookie's warm, you're just like so overwhelmed by like the melted chocolate that you're like, oh, it's amazing, but you're not really getting much texture.
Mm-hmm.
You're just getting chocolate, which is delicious, but you're not really getting the cookie.
I get you.
Yeah, and this cookie is so good that I want you to just enjoy the cookie. Just not the hot sensation, just the
I love it. And I had a question because of the shape of the cookie. Is the idea that the bottom is like the crispy part and then the top part is a little bit less baked because it is more of a ball, as it were?
Yes. So I like that. And this is when I know my cookies are done, right?
Yeah.
Well, obviously 13, 14 minutes. Every oven's different. But the base is crispy. Not crispy, but it's cooked.
Yep.
And then just like the slightest bit of the perimeter kind of becomes golden or just, you can tell it's been, a little bit cooked or well done, I guess. The top and the center of the cookie does remain doughy just because of the volume of the shape. And then when you bang it, obviously it deflates just a little bit. So you still get a little crisp, especially with the sugar on the outside. And I think the sugar really helps with that, crystallize it and just kind of harden it a little bit. I've baked these without sugar and they don't come out just as crispy on the outside. So not only for like the glittery shimmer and the crystallized look that the sugar brings, I think it also helps kind of crisp the outside that otherwise would be super soft. I think a combo of the sugar on the outside or rolling the cookies in the sugar, the bake time, and then I also take a mini spatula just when they come out of the oven, I bang them and then I just kind of the sides.
Kind of pushing the sides.
Push the sides in a little bit.
Do you do that for every cookie that you, wow.
Every
so
cookie.
Just moving. And I always find that when I'm trying to get the perfect round cookie, like sometimes you know how people, that trick where you take like a biscuit cutter, but I always find that what's hard about all of that is that you have to work quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're doing huge volume, how do you get your little spatula around each one? You're moving so fast.
I'm moving quickly, one. Well, my bakery is small in the back.
Yeah.
I'm usually the only one baking, so I'm the only one shuffling cookies in and out because 2 people, it's kind of like, excuse me, because I have a hot pan in my left hand and then the right hand with a spatula. Yep. And truly, like the doors of the oven are open. I take one out with my left hand and then my right hand, I'm just touching it up, shoving it in,
Oh, so you do it midway through the bake?
I do it at the end, but it's like timer goes off and it's like, you got to work
fast. What kind of spatula should we picture?
I just have a mini spatula. I actually got it from Target.
Like a mini flexible one?
Mini flexible,
Yep.
has like a gold handle and then just like a mini. It's my favorite baking tool. Mini spatula.
Yeah, no, I love a mini spatula
Love
too.
it.
I'm fascinated by the shape. So interesting. It really is your signature.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about a couple of additional recipes. The first one is Yaya's Golden Funfetti Birthday Cake Cookies. Okay,
Yes.
tell me everything. Yaya, and then also this cookie has golden Oreos.
Oh my God, this is so fun.
Oh my gosh, tell me everything.
Yes. Okay, so Yaya is my nickname.
Oh.
And it is. I know not many people know that. That's a fun fact.
Because a sibling had trouble saying Lara?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh,
100%.
so cute.
My brothers could not get the law in the rod at all. So Yaya was my nickname and it still is. Oh, it's so cute. So I started the business April 2020. My birthday's in June. And also, it's Pride Month and the rainbows. And I was like, okay, I think it's time for my birthday cookie to come out. My birthday's the 21st. So I named it after myself. And it has white chocolate. It has rainbow sprinkles, of course. But I put golden Oreos because golden Oreos are my favorite cookie. Like, we're talking grocery store cookie. It is my favorite. Like, I eat the whole pack.
Oh my gosh, honey, I love you. I have never met a golden Oreo lover.
Exception to the rule, I love golden.
I mean, I love Oreos, but I'm not a golden girl.
See,
I need the chocolate.
I'm a golden Oreo
honey, so the golden Oreos are there because you love them.
They're just there because I love them.
Because I thought it was a genius way of getting like a cakey. Even though a golden Oreo is a cookie,
yes,
I don't know. I'm getting cake vibes from like golden, like a vanilla cake situation.
100%.
So I thought that was its inclusion. I love that.
It just works really well. I think I was looking to accomplish a birthday cake vibe in the cookie, and it needed an extra oomph. Yeah. And I just was like, well, I have this pack of golden Oreos that I'm snacking on.
Yep.
And I just crumbled them and burst them in the bowl. And not only do they add like great texture and color, but they do add to the cakey birthday cake feel of the cookie.
Should we picture you grinding them? Or they're still is it just?
They're still intact. I just kind of
they're just crushed in your hand.
Crushed in my hand.
But not they need to be these tiny little pieces.
No. That would actually dry out the dough too much, I think.
So now when you bite into it, do you get a bite?
Oh, yeah. You're getting a bite of Oreo, white chocolate. You're seeing the colorful nonpareil sprinkles. It's delicious. That's why I named it after myself.
I know. Yeah. You're like, hello, Yaya needs
hello.
This. Yeah.
Yeah. So
all
good.
right. Tell me about caramelized butter pecan. And should I picture a pecan sandy? Is there a sandy vibe?
Little bit of a sandy vibe. So I basically take my vanilla bean sugar based dough. I put vanilla beans in everything. Yeah. I put a little vanilla bean in that too. And then I'm taking coarsely chopped pecans. I just have a huge wok actually at the shop. I just take, regular unsalted butter. I pour a little bit of sugar, a little bit of cinnamon. And then I'm just kind of walking and toasting the pecans on the wok.
So they literally are butter pecans because you cooked them in butter.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah. And then I have to admit, not that I'm eating my cookie dough 24/7. However, the caramelized butter pecan dough, unreal. The cookie's great, but the dough, and I think it's because of the extra butter with the nuts. So then when you burst it into the cookie dough becomes buttery brown sugar, a little sticky. It's delicious.
Oh, my God.
It's delicious. It's delicious. It's delicious.
That sounds incredible. I have a question. So how did you know to pull out your wok and start mixing up pecans with butter?
Just my mom. That mentality of we need to caramelize this. Even growing up, my mom would get roasted chestnuts on the street or candied pecans on the street. So I always knew candied walnuts and pecans. And my dad loves nuts. So it just was a second nature thing.
Yeah.
My dad also would order the butter pecan ice cream at Baskin and Robbins in Seattle.
Hello.
And Jamaica almond fudge. And,
oh my gosh.
We were a big sweets family.
Oh my,
so.
Can I just say that my favorite flavor, because I grew up with Baskin Robbins, their mint chocolate chip.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
my brother's favorite. He would, every time.
Oh my gosh.
Every time.
Me too. It's so good. Now tell us about a recipe inspired by your grandfather's freezer, your Neapolitan.
Ooh, yes. So like I mentioned earlier, those are my earliest memories. I would crack open Grandpa's fridge and there was a huge tub of store brand Neapolitan ice cream. But at the time, I didn't really care for the strawberry part. Always loved chocolate. I liked vanilla, but the strawberry I was just like not really a fan of. But now strawberry is like my favorite ice cream and one of my favorite flavors in the world. So as I was developing recipes and wanting to, draw from my childhood, I was like, what flavor can I make? And I thought about my grandpa and those early memories. So I decided to try a Neapolitan cookie. So similar to like the Funfetti cookie, I just split the dough in three. And then I took strawberries and marbled it with one. And then I took like Dutch pressed cocoa powder, marbled it with the other dough, and then some vanilla powder for the vanilla. And I just kind of split the three doughs and then marbled them between my hands. And not only are they beautiful, but you really get like the three distinct flavors. And then depending on how you shape them, you can also get like three flavors in one bite. And it really tastes like the ice cream that I love now. But yeah, as a child, I was like, Grandpa, like, what is this?
Is the strawberry you're using like fresh strawberries?
I use fresh strawberries. Yeah. So I don't have the cookie too often because, I like to get fresh ingredients and stuff. But when I do make it, it's a star.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Lara. And I just want to say that you are my cherry pie.
Oh, thank you so much. I never thought I'd hear those words.
That's it for today's show. Thank you to King Arthur Baking Company, Kerrygold, California Prunes, and Ghirardelli for supporting this episode. Don't forget to follow She's My Cherry Pie on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and tell your pals about us. She's My Cherry Pie is a production of the Cherry Bomb Podcast Network. Our producers are Carrie Diamond, Catherine Baker, and Jenna Sadu. Thank you so much for listening to She's My Cherry Pie, and happy baking!